Hello, welcome to part 2 of this Marshall Mercury restore. So I've got the new caps in there, a new diode in there. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through and check all the resistors in there, and then we're going to swap these caps, 3 caps here, and then these 3 transistors we're going to swap, and then we're going to lift a leg on each of these caps and just see if any of them are leaking. Excuse the noise, that's the rain on the roof. So here's one reason why we could have a bit of a weedy sound. This is the cathode bypass capacitor on the output tube, and if you look at that, we hone in, you can see it's all bulged and gooey. I've just tested it and it says unknown or damaged, so I'm afraid for him it's all over. There you go, he'll do nicely, absolutely perfect. So we'll drop him in, and that's one thing we know that we've repaired that was broke on this amplifier. So we have the 49 microfarad 6.1 loss 12 ohms ESR, and that, and it focuses, just give it a minute, is 25 microfarads at 25 volts. There we go, it's focused now. So I'm afraid it's also all over for him too. Right, a couple of resistors here. These weren't leaking, but they were a bit out of tolerance, so swap those. There's 247 nanofarads. So fully, all the caps are done now on this. And we've just got to check the I'm just going to change these transistors. I'm just, these little BC 184s, you can see one of them there, so I'm just going to change these. Only 3, they're only pennies, they only take 10 minutes to change them, so I'm going to whip those out, put new ones in, and then we know we're all good. And then all that's left now is I've just got, there's a few suspect resistors. They don't tally up. There's a couple don't tally up with that schematic, but we think that schematic's not very accurate. So I think he'd had a few drinks when he wrote that out, and so I'm not going to go too mad with that, because what's in here is more than likely going to be right, and there's a couple that might be out of tolerance. I'll not know for sure till I pull them out of the board, because you never know if they're connected in parallel or something. The other thing then is to clean up that socket there, and if we just hone in on that, you can see that there it said work done on it before. It said a new socket in, and they've just not cleaned all the flux off, so we need to do that, otherwise it'll be conductive. So that is that, and then this can go back together and be given a test. Oh, we've just got to tidy these wires up. I've took these wires off so I can get the board out, but you can see the ends of them a bit naff, so I'm going to cut those back if there's enough to do it. I hope there is. If there's enough to do it, I'm going to cut those back and make a neater job of those, because I don't want anybody thinking I've left that like that, because it's a shit show. And then we're going to get this amp fired up. So we're just looking at this socket now. I've got all those components in, and I've got the board down. I've just got to put the screws in, and I need to clean this mess up. There's a bit of a mess. There's a resistor bin joined in there on that trace. Don't quite know what that's about, but somebody's modded that, it appears. That's pin 8, or that it's loose, but it don't matter because it's not used. That resistor, I've just realised that resistor must be a screen resistor that they've put in, because that's the screen pin 9. Let's just have a look what it is. It looks like 1K. Yeah. So I'm just going to clean this up now. Probably just re-solder some bits of it. It's not been soldered bad, it's just not been cleaned up. Now I've got to clean my own up as well, what I've done. So I'm going to get on and do that. Right, I've got this amp up and running, as you can hear. tremolo don't work at the minute, but there's a more pressing issue than that. So I've just checked the bias on this Softec tube that came in this amp, and this amp is running at a whopping 17 watts of dissipation, and while I'm running it up and everything, I'm thinking, blimey, that smells. I thought it's perhaps just something on the tube, but that tube is on fire, and that probably explains why the socket is burnt like it is, because of the bias, it seems. So the first thing we're going to do before we even start on the tremolo is first thing I need to do is put another tube in there, because again, that is a Softec, it's a Russian tube, tend to draw more current. So let's find another tube. Yes, so tried another tube in there, still the same. So the only thing I can think that when this amp was manufactured, it had a tube in it that didn't draw as much current as these tubes are drawing. So I'm going to have to change that resistor that's on there, that 100 ohms. Right, this is all finished now. What a palaver. So we couldn't get the tremolo to work, and some very strange things happening. And it turned out to be a 6 meg 8 resistor that was faulty, and every time I put the foot switch in, and then pulled this, I just shoved a lead in the foot switch and then pulled it out, the tremolo would work for a bit and then fade away. Then all of a sudden it didn't work at all. Well, I tested through the resistors on the board before I started putting all the new components it needed. Anyway, when I tested through again, this 6 meg 8 resistor was open circuit. It's a bit of a baffler, that one. It took me a while to find it, because obviously I'd already checked the resistors. So that one must have been on its way out, and it finally said good night while I was working on it, while I was testing it. So we've got a 220 ohm resistor in instead of 100, and it's a 5 watt. Now I've mounted it on the top here, obviously off the board so it can get some air around it. Allowing 5% for the screens, we've got 10 watts. Remember, we had 17 on it before, so that's made a hell of a difference on that. And that's basically it. We've replaced a few components in this that needed replacing, but all in all, that's it, it's done. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to get it in its case, and we're going to have a listen, see if it sounds better than it did before we actually did all this restoration work. The bright channel is, or the high channel, which probably ought to be called bright channel, it really is bright, that is. The normal channel is about normal. So we've got to connect the speaker up, as you can see there. So we'll get it in its case, and then we'll give it a test, fire it up, and see if it sounds good. Right, we've got this Marshall Mercury back together and ready for testing. Quite a bit of background noise off it, so I don't know whether that's because it's just a budget amp. You get an occasional frying coming in and out, so we may have to go back and change some more resistors. So we've got it plugged into this high channel, and boy, that's high. That is seriously toppy. So there we have it. There's the Marshall Mercury first demonstration. So after listening to that, you can tell that's a very toppy amp indeed. And this amp needs another coat of looking at. So we've got some frying that comes along occasionally and goes, and I'm guessing that's probably resistors that's in there. Could be that tube, of course, because that's being cooked quite heavily at 17 watts, but it more than likely is a component in there. So I think I'm going to do a part 3 on this one. Gentleman left me a comment on part 1 saying that he got one of these, and he'd got a Celestion Greenback in the one he's got, and as we know, changing the speaker in an amplifier probably makes 80% of the sound difference. So probably going to look for another speaker for it as well, and also I'm looking at doing some mods to this amp, because I've got that schematic which we'll have a look at in part 3, and see if we can't do a few mods on this amplifier and get it to sound a bit better. It's very bright and toppy. We've got some background noise, which I'm not sure whether we'll be able to get rid of that. Remember, these were budget amplifiers, and they were mail order only, so they were Marshall's budget range. So we can't expect it to sound like the full valve Marshalls, but the idea is to try and get this amp to sound a bit better. If this amp was mine, I would have had that PC board out and made a little single-ended amp out of it and put in a really decent speaker, but it's not mine, so I can't do that. And we've got to try and preserve some of this amp's originality and try and get it to sound better. So that'll do it for part 2, I think. So thanks for watching, and appreciate the 1 or 2 of the comments that people have left. They're really helpful. So if you'd like to subscribe, please do so, and you all take care, and I will see you in a future video. Bye for now.